If you've reached this stage, you're almost there. We're talking about part 5, the next steps following your situation analysis, figuring out what to do next grounded in that situation analysis. So here I'm in the template where you're actually developing your situation analysis, and you can see the guidance here. So as I've said for the other sections, so same thing applies here. If you're short on time, just follow the instructions in here. However, there is much more detailed and actually in some cases important instructions and guidance in the rubric itself. Criterion 5, that's on page 7, contains the next steps. And let's first look at the rubric current level of work rating. So of course, if there are no next steps, it's a 0 out of 4. And then if the next steps are excellent, it's a 4. Now, what does it mean for next steps to be excellent? You can look at the 3, for example, compelling next steps that seem actionable in the author's context, but require minor improvements. That gives you a sense, okay, about what's compelling or excellent. Well, to answer that question, we go to the rest of the criterion. So specific and actionable next steps that you will take with regards to your challenge, given what you now know, as well as what you know you don't know. It's important for you to consider trying something new using resources you already have, especially if conventional actions you have tried in the past have failed to help you tackle your challenge. And this is where I'm actually going to show you how to use the ideas engine to find sort of next steps that you may not think of naturally, next steps that may be different from what you usually do to tackle challenges such as the one you're challenging now, or the challenge may be new and you don't know what the next steps, you don't have anything that you usually do. Whatever the case may be, there are some specifics about what a good next step looks like. So you want to prioritize. We don't want to kind of laundry list a long inventory of possible actions. We want the specific ones. I would say 3, 3 to 5 maximum, that are the ones most likely to help you make a difference and achieve impact. You can see that here. Be specific. So you can use the sort of SMART, specific, measurable, and so on. If you're not familiar with SMART, you can Google it. Who will do each action step, when and how, so that all action steps are implemented in time. Each action step should be actionable and relevant to your challenge. Can you tell? That's monitoring or evaluate when you have completed each action step. How are actions linked to outcomes? What will be the outcome of your next step? How will you measure the success of your planned actions? How are you going to monitor the results? These are the kinds of questions as you say, well, my next step will be, I think we need to do a communication campaign to reach parents, to reach families, to better explain the value, the qualities, safety, and efficacy of a vaccine. Well, who will do this step? When and how? Is it actionable? How is it relevant to your challenge? How will it help you progress with respect to your challenge? So what will be the outcome of your next step? Make sure that you mention this. What's the point of carrying out this next step? How will you measure the success of these actions? How will you monitor the results again? Now, if you're proposing an action you've done before, you probably need to think, okay, well, because of the epidemic, what is different? And make sure that the action fits. If you fit your action to the plan at your level, you say, well, do the next steps fit into the EPI plan where you work? And actually, let me restate this. Let me rephrase this. What I mean is you are not doing the situation analysis in a vacuum. In your work, you probably have a plan or a micro plan at your level. And it is revised. It is the basis for the activities that are carried out by you and your team. So we want to make sure that the next steps you identify actually fit to the plan at your level. You're not pulling this out of a hat, but you're looking at what are we already doing and how can we build in the next steps into the things we're already doing rather than creating completely new sort of separate things to do. Now, working with others is likely to be critical to your next steps. You're probably not going to be able to do all the next steps yourself. So the question is, in your next steps, what are you doing to ensure that stakeholders at your level are going to be on board and supportive? Next steps can also cover resource questions, of course. So can you do this with existing resources? If not, then your next steps probably need to consider what are you going to do to secure the resources that you need? And then you may have a next step around risk management. So how do you mitigate failure? How do you identify the risks? Are there steps you need to take to identify the risks, make sure that you're reducing or averting the risk of failure to the greatest extent possible and increasing your chances of success? Now, your peer reviewers will be asking questions about, are there enough details to understand why and how these next steps are proposed? Sometimes people will just put, okay, well, here are 5 things, but we have no idea why they want to do those 5 things. Tell us. And these next steps can't be sort of pulled out of a hat. They need to fit your actions to your plan at your level, so plan or micro plan, and they need to make sense with respect to everything you've written above about your situation, about what you've learned from your data sources, about your findings. So the next steps you need to be able to connect the dots between, well, I found these things in my situation analysis, and I'm taking these steps, and it needs to be clear why each step is linked and grounded in your findings, in your situation. So again, you look at the next steps here. If you are just in a hurry, you can rely only on this. However, be wary, your peer reviewers will be using the full rubric, so it's definitely worth reading and keeping in mind what is in the rubric criterion for next steps. Here is most important point. I'll actually cover this in the next tutorial, is really if you are doing things against a challenge that is new or different, and if what you usually do hasn't worked in the past, it is likely that if you keep doing what you usually do, that will not work either. So that is where there's a need for innovative ideas. And if you recall the ideas engine, or if you have access to the ideas engine, you can use the ideas engine to help you find actions, next steps, activities that you may not have thought of, that you've never done before, that could actually help you make the difference with respect to your challenge. Again, can't be arbitrary choices or activities that you just sort of copy and paste from the ideas engine. That's not at all what this is about, but it's about knowing what you know now, based on your findings, based on what you knew already about your situation, having looked at and your data sources and the story they tell together. Can you see activities that you found in the ideas engine that can inspire you or actually help you think through and identify specific next steps that you'll put in this section? So the next steps is very important. Remember, the next stage is to actually develop, flesh out the action plan, and then to implement it against your IA 2030 challenge. But already at this stage, it's important to infer, here's what I found, here are my findings for my situation analysis, what they mean, and they're only useful to the extent that you're able to identify what you need to do next. What comes next once you have a better understanding, you have a picture of the situation, you have the findings that you found about the situation, you've hopefully gotten to the root causes of the situation in relation to the challenge and the question, and you've been able to answer your question. Put all that together to actually figure out what to do next.